Hello, BookTube. All right, we're back for more of this impromptu library tour that we're doing. I started off with Biography. You all seem to like it. You all seem to enjoy it, and it has been a long time, years, and many thousands of subscribers since I did this. So I'm doing it again. The Biography is my favorite genre. These books are my favorite books, aside from my Penguin Classics. And this video, like the last one, and like it looks like the next one, is all British royal biographies. So if you're not interested in British royal biographies, I won't object at all if you skip this video. And I mentioned that I sort of quasi-arranged these biographies chronologically once upon a time, and they have shifted around a bit as I pull books off and use them and then put them back in some other place. But since they are roughly arranged, roughly chronologically, and since I'm working from the bottom of this bookcase up, we have been going backwards in time. So we like for instance, the last shelf that we did was mostly Windsors, and now that's changing. Now we're going backwards further in time. So we're going to do the next shelf, and I noticed I guess these are part of bookshelf tours, right? I noticed that there are things on the shelf in addition to books. One is a red dragon statue that I got in Wales, and another is I don't know what it's doing here. This is a Roman coin from the first century, from African campaigns. That you've got, I don't know if you can make it out there, you've got an elephant on the coin there, but I don't know what it's doing here. But and also a trilobite that is even older than I am. So we've got those things, and then we've got some transverse books, two of them. So we'll do those first. And the first transverse book answers a question of mine, because when I got to Elizabeth Longford's really good, really plentiful biography of Queen Victoria, it seemed strange to me that I knew I had at least one other, and this is it. This is Stanley Weintraub's great biography of Victoria, that has the young Victoria by Sir Edwin Landseer on the front, and the older Victoria on the back. Weintraub is a great biographer, a terrific, just all-purpose historian. He's written a ton of books. They're all worth reading. And this is where that Victoria book ended up, I guess. And I don't seem to have a hardcover of it. That's a bit of a shame. And then this next transverse, okay, this is a dual biography by Christopher Warwick of George VI and Queen Elizabeth, who became the Queen Mother. So that is Windsor. That shouldn't be here. That should be down on the bottom shelf. Down on the next shelf down. I wonder if I can put it down there now. I wonder if it'll fit. It will. Okay, great. And then we'll just press on. And the first one here is weird. This is just downright weird. Now I'm curious if this is all just a bigger mess than I thought it was. This is Anne Somerset's really good first-rate biography of Queen Elizabeth I. And as far as I can tell, just glancing at these shelves, this is my only biography of Queen Elizabeth I, which doesn't seem to make any sense. She's had thousands of them, but this appears to be the only one. Maybe I am just due to stock up on Elizabeth biographies, because every biographer, brings their own vantage point to the subject. But Anne Somerset's book is really good, so I'm glad I have at least that. Okay, all right. Then we have two biographies of Mary Tudor, of Bloody Mary. This one is by Carolee Erickson, and there is our author in far younger days when we were all younger and happier. This is Carolee Erickson has been doing this forever, and this is a terrific book. And this next one is a bit older. This is, or no, maybe a little newer. This is David Lode's biography of Mary Tudor. So, and that's kind of weird, right there, what I mentioned, because I have one biography of Queen Elizabeth I and two of Queen Mary. That doesn't seem to make sense. So as I go through these biographies, I'm noting, very much mentally noting the things that I don't have that I want to have. And I'm noticing another one right now, this next one. W.K. Jordan did what is still the definitive biography of Edward VI, Henry VIII's only legitimate male heir, who was trained up to be a king and died before he could become king. And Jordan did 2 volumes. This is The Threshold of Power, and the volume before it was The Young King, or The Boy King, The Young King. And I'm looking here at the shelf, and I'm seeing that I have only this one, and not the other one. I should have the 2 volumes, and I don't. Edward is fascinating to me. I wrote a NaNoWriMo project about him that I also call Boy King. It's a bit on the dry side, but it is just the last word in somebody trawling through the documents and writing not only about Edward, but about the Seymour brothers who ran England, while he was young. That just wonderful stuff. A bit on the dry side, not meant really to be curled up with by a fire. What is this? Oh, okay. All right, this is by Gareth Russell. Why do I have this? Am I quoted in here? Yes, I am. Okay. This is by Gareth Russell. It's a fairly new book. This is a biography of Katherine Howard, one of the more disastrous wives of King Henry VIII. This is Young and Damned and Fair, about the prize-winning ninny, Katherine Howard, who married an aging and short-tempered king who had already killed one of his wives. Keep in mind, she married this aging and short-tempered king when she was a teenager and proceeded to cheat on him, to have affairs at court, almost suicidal, and of course she ended up dying. This I thought was really good, and I think the reason I have the paperback instead of the hardcover is because it has a blurb from my review. What did I say about this thing? This was quite a while ago. In revisiting Katherine Howard's story, Russell seeks to shift the emphasis from the personal to the professional, stressing how the households of queens and powerful noblewomen could become focal points for a level of power and influence earlier historians haven't always fully credited. Okay, and then this next one is also a queen, also a queen of King Henry VIII. This is Katherine Howard, or Catherine of Aragon. This is a UK trade paperback of Linda Porter's life. Oh no, sorry, this isn't Katherine of Aragon. This is Katherine Parr, my favorite of King Henry VIII's wives. The one that I find the most interesting. Boy, I loved this book. I had it. I guess I have it here because this is a UK trade paperback, and I love those. And I think that is my only biography of Katherine Parr. Every year there is a Katherine Parr book boiling, percolating out there in the world. I know it well. I have followed its life over the many years. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If it ever appears, it will be the definitive life of this queen, this figure who is so interesting. With the stress on if it ever appears, we shall see. I am doing my best. Then this next one is Dermot McCullough. Okay, this is the Boy King. This is his life of Edward VI. This is a great author, and he turned his hand to a short biography of Edward. They all have to be short. That was what makes Jordan's work so impressive, is that his book is so big and so detailed on such a short life. And okay, here's another book on another queen. This is Anne Boleyn, one of the best Anne Boleyn books I've ever read, The Creation of Anne Boleyn, by Susan Bordeaux. This is the hardcover that I got, and it probably still has the pub sheet in it. This is not the paperback. I don't know if I'm quoted on the paperback. I've never actually seen the paperback to know. But this is terrific, because it's not just a life of Anne Boleyn. It's a life of her afterlife in culture, in history, and all that sort of stuff. Fascinating stuff. Okay. All right, then we move on to the man himself. This is Francis Hackett's book, Henry VIII. This is an old hardcover. This is about 100 years old. This book is, about 100 years old, or 1929, and it is brilliant, just brilliant. It is so beautifully written. It's not what we would consider now a work of scholarship, although there's nothing wrong with it. But it's so impressionistic, so beautifully written. This is a book you could hand to anybody, whether they like reading biography or not, and they will read it and love it because it's so eloquent. So I can't not have it. Okay, this next one is Lauren Johnson. We saw her on this channel recently because she has a big book called The Shadow King about Henry VI. And when I got that book, her name rang a bell, and it's for this book, So Great a Prince, which is about the accession of Henry VIII. It's about Henry VIII as a young man. When he came to the throne, he was completely different from the stereotype, the Charles Laughton stereotype that we all have in our minds when we think of Henry VIII, this fat, squinty-eyed, bearded, old king. When Henry came to the throne, he was tall and bright and athletic and he was everything. He was a perfect prince, and everyone at the time thought so. No one could see the future, of course. And I remember really liking this book. And again, this is the finished copy. I don't actually know if this ever had a paperback in America, and I don't know if I'm quoted on the paperback. No idea. Then this next one is probably... Oh, there goes the Cistercius. I'll pick it back up. This is probably the best one-volume Henry VIII biography that exists so far. I say that with a lot of skepticism because I myself, it's heretical to say, considering how many hundreds of books have been written about this guy, but I don't think that the definitive Henry VIII biography has been written yet. I think they're all, on one level or another, imbalanced, unbalanced in some way. But this is a fantastic book. This is J.J. Scar's book, his biography of Henry VIII. This is, people ask me, what book on Henry VIII should I read if I want to know about him? I'm always tempted to recommend this one, but this is fairly stiff reading. I mean, uphill reading. You're supposed to know something about Henry VIII and his era when you read this. You're also supposed to maybe have some muscles flexed in terms of reading biographies, just in general. So I usually end up recommending something else. Usually Hackett, if you can find him. But that's great. Okay, that's Henry VIII. I'll move the trilobite so it doesn't fall. Oh, okay, all right. This is Crimes' book, Henry VII, Henry VIII's father, largely misunderstood, I think. There's another one. There's another Henry VII biography. I think it's the founder of the House of Tudor or something like that, that had a blue dust jacket. I remember that, and I know that I don't have it anymore, and I don't know why. I wish I did. I think Henry VII is fascinating, just a fascinating figure. The more you read about him, the more you realize that history is not. Biographers tend to go the easy route of harping on the contrast between him and his sons, so that he becomes this pallid Vulcan figure who never has any deep emotions, and that's an injustice. And the more you read biographies of him, the more that the real Henry peeks out. Okay, all right. This is Thomas Penn. This is a much more recent book on Henry VII. And again, I don't know if I'm quoted on the paperback. No idea. All the usual suspects are quoted on the hardcover: John Guy, Tracy Borman, Dermot McCullough, Hilary Mantel, Philippa Gregory, Helen Castor. They're all quoted on this, and it deserves it. It was really good. And that, I think, okay, so it's those two. So I've got 3 Henry VIII biographies and 2 Henry VII biographies. Okay. And then we start to jump around impermissibly. But this next one is Antonia Fraser. We've seen her before from Mary, Queen of Scots. This is her biography of Charles II, the Merry Monarch. Many a tale of Charles II I could tell. This is terrific. All of her books are terrific. So I believe is the only Charles II book that I have, the only biography of him, I think. Then we move on to Mark Morris. He was, of course, going to be on this eventually. He's a current writer of medieval history that I really like, and this is his book on King John. I think the year that this came out, there was a little burst of King John books. I think there were 3 that year. This was 2 years ago, I think. This has all the clippings. This was 2015. And in or around that area, there were a bunch of King John books, and that's good, because it shouldn't all be. There's a great historian, Warren. He did the definitive biography of King Henry II. He also did a really, really solid biography of King John, and that it shouldn't only be him. We should have new people studying these things and going at them. This is terrifically written as for a generally approachable ground level narrative. You could, if you are interested in reading a book about King John, and you want to know where to start and have never done that, this is the place to do that. Okay. All right, this is James Anderson Winn. This is his big book on Queen Anne. I don't know if you can tell, but this is bigger than a normal hardcover. We line them up down there like that. See, it's bigger. It's taller and wider, and that's to accommodate lots of artwork. And because this is a book about her as the patroness of the arts, so you have full color pictures of the buildings that she commissioned or whatnot, all that sort of stuff. This functions as much more than just her as patroness of the arts. This is a fantastic Queen Anne book, my favorite of them all. I'm a little bit biased, but I still think this is my favorite. And I think, once again, I don't think this ever had a paperback edition. but if it did, I might be blurbed on the paperback. I kept the hardcovers of all of these things. And a lot of times, like this is Oxford. Oxford's notorious for not sending either finished copies or the paperback copies of when it comes out. I only occasionally get them. And other university presses are the same way. They're not always scrupulous about it. And because they're university presses, and the paperback comes late and it comes in a small print run, you often won't see them in bookstores either. So a lot of these things could have my name all over them and I wouldn't know. And then we get to the end. Then we're at the end here. This is Edward IV. This is Charles Ross's big old biography of Edward IV. Now, there was a king. Tall, muscular, eloquent, beautiful, talented. Unfortunately treacherous as the day is long, but still. What this is doing, I think we're jumbling time frames just a bit here. But that's okay. This is this was the Yale English Monarch series? No, the English Monarch series. This was the University of California Press, and Ross is a bit of a dry writer. Edward has had other biographies that I don't seem to have. I'm glancing just quickly at the shelf, and I don't see any other Edward IV biographies, so this might be my only one. But that is it. That is the... I don't know if I could put Victoria any closer to where she belongs. Maybe not. Maybe not. That is the next shelf of the biography, which is all British biography now. And we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going with British royal biographies next time. But that's it for now. And once again, I will do my best to leave links down below to anywhere that I've written about these people or these books. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.